Have you ever trusted someone with a part of your heart, only for them to disappear without warning? Have you ever held on to a secret, not because you wanted to, but because no one ever gave you the choice? This is a story about a woman who chose peace over pursuit, and a man who returned years later to find his entire world staring back at him with his own eyes. If you've ever felt torn between what you know is right and what your heart still remembers, then stay with us. The sky above Miami was a deep velvet blue, the city lights flickering like jewels. Below, as soft music floated through the rooftop of the Horizon Grand Hotel. It was a night meant for grace, elegance, and philanthropy, the kind of night that demanded flawlessness. And Nia Carter wouldn't settle for anything less. She stood at the edge of the terrace, clipboard in hand, earpiece crackling with updates from her staff below. Her black jumpsuit was sleek, her heels sharp, her hair twisted into a soft updo that matched her professionalism. No one watching her would have guessed that her stomach was a tight knot of nerves. Wolf Innovation's annual charity gala was the kind of event that made or broke careers, and Nia was the lead coordinator. Her team moved with precision, seating guests, correcting place cards, adjusting lighting, but Nia's eyes kept darting toward the elevator. Grayson Wolf hadn't arrived yet. The man behind the empire, the mind behind millions, the face behind 1,000 magazine covers. She'd never met him in person, but she knew his reputation. Cold, brilliant, ruthless. A billionaire tech tycoon who crushed competitors with quiet efficiency and barely blinked during interviews. She expected someone smug, arrogant, maybe even entitled. She was not prepared for the way he looked when he finally stepped out of the elevator. Grayson Wolf wore a midnight black suit that hugged his tall frame like it had been stitched straight onto him. His hair was close-cropped, his jawline chiseled, and his eyes, they were the color of a thunderstorm, gray and unblinking. His entrance wasn't loud, but the entire rooftop shifted when he walked in. Conversations paused. Staff straightened. Executives adjusted their ties. It was as if gravity bent slightly around him. He didn't smile, didn't wave, just scanned the room with the precision of a man used to fixing flaws. Nia snapped back to work. No distractions. Not tonight. She stepped behind the bar to check the refreshers, nodded at the lighting crew to adjust the dimming for the speeches, then walked toward the VIP seating arrangement, only to freeze. 3 names were missing from the printed list. Names that shouldn't have been. She checked her iPad. The RSVPs were confirmed just hours ago, but her final list had already gone to print this morning. A mistake. A dangerous one. Her heart pounded. She flagged one of her interns to reprint the nameplates and slid away from the crowd to the executive suite nearby. It was where overflow VIPs were being prepped. She needed to fix the setup without causing a scene. The door opened before she could knock. Grayson stood there. He raised an eyebrow. "You missed 3 senators on the seating chart," he said, holding the flawed list in his hand. His voice was low even, and far calmer than she expected. Nia didn't flinch. "Your assistant confirmed RSVP status at 2:40 p.m. The print order closed at 11 a.m. I worked with the information I had." He looked at her, long and silent. Her tone had not been apologetic. That surprised him. "Noted," he finally said. "Fix it. I already have. New cards are being printed now." He stepped aside. "Then come in. Walk me through what else might be wrong." She blinked. Was he serious? Sure, she said, stepping in. The room was minimalistic, just dark wood, cream walls, and a sleek digital screen displaying the donor list and auction items. Grayson stood by the window, arms crossed, facing her like a boardroom opponent. He fired off questions. She answered quickly, clearly. When he tried to poke at a weakness in her timing schedule, she pointed to the contingency plan. When he questioned the donor tier colors, she explained the visual branding strategy. 10 minutes in, he uncrossed his arms. 15 minutes in, he nodded. "Efficient," he said. She allowed herself a breath. "I try," she replied. That was the first time he looked directly at her, really looked. She hadn't expected to hold his gaze. "But," She did, and neither of them looked away. By 11 p.m., the gala had raised over $4 million. The press was glowing. The crowd was humming with praise. And Nia Carter finally took a breath for herself. She was wrapping up in the control tent downstairs when one of the bartenders handed her a flute of sparkling apple cider. "Compliments of Mr. Wolf," he said. She stared at it for a moment. Polished, perfect, unexpected. Like him, she was exhausted, ready to shut down. But something in her pulled her back up to the rooftop. The crowd had thinned. The lights had softened. The music was now a slow, instrumental version of something romantic and unplaceable. He was still there. Grayson stood near the edge, drink in hand, watching the skyline. She approached slowly. "Thank you for the drink," she said. He looked over. "You deserved it." She stood next to him, silent. The breeze pulled at her curls. Her body ached from hours of being upright, alert, decisive. "You saved tonight," he said. "I just did my job." "You saved tonight," he repeated, without a smile, but with a tone that almost sounded like admiration. They stood in silence for a long while. He turned toward her. "Do you ever rest?" She gave a soft chuckle. "Sometimes." "I don't," he said. "Not really. Not anymore." There was something about the way he said it, like he wasn't talking about sleep. They talked for a few more minutes. About nothing. About everything. He was different now. Not sharp. Not cold. Just tired. Vulnerable even. She understood that version of him. When he offered her a second glass, she didn't refuse. They talked. They laughed once. They didn't talk about work. They sat by the railing and shared stories that weren't for anyone else. When he reached for her hand, she let him. When he leaned in, she didn't stop him. And when they kissed, the world didn't matter. The city kept glowing beneath them, but nothing else existed except the quiet between their hearts. The sunlight poured in through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, sweet like it was determined to wake the city before its time. Nia stirred against the silk sheets, her head resting on a pillow. That didn't belong to her, her skin still warm from what had been. She turned slowly. The other side of the bed was empty. Her eyes scanned the room. Clean, neat, untouched. His shoes were gone. The jacket he'd tossed over the chair was no longer there. His watch, his scent, his voice. All absent. In the place where he had once been was a note, a square slip of hotel stationery folded precisely and left on the pillow beside her. She sat up, heart already tightening as she reached for it. It read, "Had to catch a flight. Thank you." No number, no explanation, no signature. For a man who commanded empires with words, he had chosen the smallest ones for her. She sat with the note in her lap for 5 full minutes, staring at it like it might suddenly grow more. But it didn't. By noon, she checked out of the hotel in silence. The gala buzz was over, and so was whatever that night had been. She didn't tell anyone, not her assistant, not her closest friend, not even herself, not in the way that admitted it meant anything. She buried it like a secret she never wanted to give oxygen. It worked, until 3 weeks later. The nausea hit her on a random Tuesday. At first, she blamed the cheap coffee, then the fried rice from the night before. But by Friday, she was in the pharmacy aisle, staring at boxes of pregnancy tests with shaking hands. She waited until she was home, until the bathroom door was locked, until the instructions had been read 3 times. And even then, when the second pink line appeared, she still said out loud, "No." It was faint, but it was there. 2 pink lines. She sat on the edge of the tub, knees trembling, the world closing in around her like a collapsing tent. Grayson Wolf, the one-night mistake she couldn't forget. The man who vanished behind a 7-word note and a high-altitude flight. She clutched her chest. She didn't cry. Instead, she picked up her phone and tried the number she'd used for Wolf Innovations' event team. No answer. She tried another, his assistant, busy, no return call. She sent an email. Subject line, important, Nia Carter. No reply, 1 more call. Finally, someone answered. Wolf Innovations. How may I help you? This is Nia Carter. I need to speak with Mr. Wolf. I'm sorry. Mr. Wolf is unavailable. I've already emailed and left 2 messages. I just need... Ma'am, he's not available. Is this event related? Click. She stared at her phone. That was her answer. Atlanta was the only place that made sense. She left Miami quietly. She didn't tell anyone about the pregnancy. She stayed with her aunt for the first few months, helping around the house while she grew quieter and her body changed. The baby inside her gave her no room to be in denial. When the time came, she didn't ask for pain meds. She wanted to feel everything, wanted to remember every part of what this decision had cost her. She named him Zaire, not after anyone, not for anyone, for herself. Zaire came into the world with a quiet strength. His eyes weren't hers, not even close. They were storm grey, deep, unapologetic, just like his father's. But when he smiled, that was all her. Her aunt cried when she first held him. Nia didn't. She held him with the stillness of someone who had made peace with chaos. It was just the 2 of them now. Motherhood was messy, but she owned it. She worked odd jobs, late shifts, eventually picking up wedding planning and community fundraisers again. Her old contacts in Florida had long dried up, but Atlanta was a fresh start. Her business grew slowly. She designed with elegance, managed vendors like a general, and always kept Zaire's picture in her wallet, even if no one knew who he was. She never asked for help, and she never said his father's name, not to anyone. Not even when Zaire began to talk. Not when he took his first steps. Not even when he pointed to other kids' fathers at the park and said, "We're mine." She answered with a smile. "Right now, you've got me. And I've got you." It was enough. Or so she told herself. By the time Zaire was 5, he had his own personality. He was gentle, observant, and surprisingly clever. He liked puzzles, robots, and the color green. He didn't like loud noises, broccoli, or when Nia worked late. Most nights, she made it home in time for bedtime stories. Some nights, she didn't. But no matter what, she never let him fall asleep without hearing her voice. He never asked about his father directly, until one evening. He climbed into bed beside her after a long day and pulled the blanket up to his chin. He was quiet, thoughtful. Then he looked at her and asked, "You love me enough for 2, right?" She smiled through the lump in her throat. "I always will." Zaire's questions became softer after that, but more frequent. He asked where he got his eyes from, why his last name was Carter, why his drawings never included a dad. Nia answered each one like a slow dance. She never lied, but she didn't tell the whole truth either. How do you explain abandonment to a child who thinks the world is still kind? So instead, she wrapped his questions in patience and turned her heart into armor. Her business, Carter and Company, events, had expanded. Now, with 3 junior planners and a small downtown office, Nia was finally breathing a little easier, at least on the surface. Every time a new client came in, she hoped, silently, that it wouldn't be him, that she wouldn't see those storm grey eyes again. She had made peace with his absence, and with her choice to never chase a man who vanished after changing her life. But fate doesn't ask for permission, and it doesn't knock twice. The morning started like most others: emails, invoices, 2 missed calls from a florist, and a syrup stain. On Zaire's shirt that somehow appeared in the 5 minutes it took Nia to grab her laptop charger. "Mum, can I bring the robot sketchbook to class?" Zaire asked, already half-dressed, barefoot, and animated. His curls were slightly damp from the shower, his hoodie inside out. "Only if you actually wear socks this time," Nia replied, tucking the charger into her bag as she reached for a clean shirt from the hallway drawer. It was a typical day in the Carter household. Controlled chaos, a rhythm they both had learned to move in, quietly, efficiently, and with just enough laughter to keep the edges soft. By 8:20 a.m., she had dropped him off at school and was back in her office, coffee in one hand, iPad in the other, ready to face another round of wedding madness and last-minute client drama. She was reviewing floral selections for a high-profile Atlanta ceremony when her assistant Marla peeked her head into the office. "You might want to take this one," Marla said, holding a cordless phone to her chest. Nia raised an eyebrow. "Please don't say it's another bridezilla." "Nope. Corporate client. Very upscale. Big budget. I already checked. This is not a prank." Nia sighed. "Fine. Give me the pitch." Marla handed her the phone. "Hello. This is Nia Carter, speaking." "Ms. Carter," a deep voice greeted her. "My name is Ronell Dorsey. I'm calling on behalf of Wolf Innovations. We're hosting a private executive retreat next weekend in Colorado, and we're looking for a full-service coordinator to manage logistics, hospitality, and discreet concierge operations for the duration of the event. Your name came highly recommended." Nia's fingers froze above her tablet. She hadn't heard that name, Wolf Innovations, spoken to her directly in years. She closed her eyes briefly. "Just a second." "I see," she said, keeping her voice even. "What's the scope?" 3 days, 20 guests. Lodging is handled. We need you on site for reception planning, dining preferences, team activity coordination, and confidentiality enforcement. Budget is not an issue. We're prepared to triple your standard daily rate. Travel and lodging covered for up to 2 people. 2 people? She looked at the wall calendar, then back down at her planner. Zaire's school had a plumbing issue. They'd just sent out a notice this morning. No school for a week. Perfect timing. Or cruel irony. She felt a tight coil pulling inside her. Triple her rate. Major exposure. The kind of event that opened doors in ways small contracts never could. But Wolf Innovations, Grayson's company. His name hadn't been mentioned yet. But she knew. He was still the face, the brand, the powerhouse. She cleared her throat. "Could you send me the full itinerary and agreement?" "Absolutely," Ronell said. "We'd like your team on site 36 hours before the first guest arrives. You'd be our lead contact. I'll review and respond within the hour." She hung up slowly, staring at the wall like it might offer a warning she hadn't already considered. Marla walked in moments later. "So, are we taking it?" she asked. Cautious. Nia didn't answer right away. Instead, she opened her drawer, pulled out her business ledger, and did the math. 2 months' worth of income. In 3 days. Marla waited. "Yes," Nia finally said. "We're taking it." That evening, she and Zaire ate grilled cheese on the living room couch. He was watching a cartoon where the robot dad kept forgetting the robot kid's name. "Mom," Zaire said during a commercial, "do rich people ever eat cereal for dinner?" Nia smiled. "Probably not the way we do." "Good. That's their loss." She loved his mind, the way he saw through things without even realizing it, the way he made simple things feel like treasure. He leaned into her side, his head resting on her shoulder. "Can I come with you to Colorado? Why do you want to come? I heard you say it's snowy there. I've never seen real snow. Like, not on TV." She paused. She hadn't decided yet. But suddenly, the thought of leaving him behind while she went into the lion's den felt wrong. Not just for him. For her. "Yeah," she said. "You can come?" "Cool. I'm bringing all 3 robot sketchbooks." The private lodge outside Denver was nestled between long stretches of pine and stone. The air smelled like firewood and mountain wind. Snow was lightly falling by the time their driver pulled into the curved stone driveway. Zaire pressed his face against the window. "It looks like Narnia." She couldn't help but smile. They stepped into the lobby. Warmth rushed to meet them. Crackling fire, soft instrumental music, the scent of cinnamon and leather. Everything was high-end. Wolf Innovations spared no expense. She checked in with the front desk and was given the schedule, prep day. Executive arrivals, team-building workshops, nightly fireside socials. She'd oversee everything. Her staff was already unpacking supplies. Marla had arrived the day before. Everything was under control, except her heartbeat. It had been quiet for years. Not a whisper, not a shadow. But now, walking through these halls, designed with his money, shaped by his vision, It all came roaring back. She told herself he wouldn't be here, that it was just a corporate gig, but part of her knew better. The next morning, as she reviewed dining arrangements in the main event lounge, the elevator doors slid open behind her. She didn't need to turn. She felt it. The shift in air, the silence that followed, the quiet that only came with the arrival of someone who didn't need to announce himself. She turned slowly. He was standing across the room, dressed in a black coat and dark jeans, snow still melting off his shoulders. Grayson Wolfe. His eyes widened, storm grey meeting soft brown. Nia. Her heart didn't skip. It dropped. "Mr. Wolfe," she said, voice level, steady. He didn't move. She didn't blink. "Why are you here?" he asked. "I was hired." "You were hired by my company." "I own Carter and Company now." He nodded slowly. His jaw tightened. His eyes scanned her face. "Of course you do." She gave a polite nod and turned back to the seating layout. But she could still feel him watching her, like the past had never ended, only paused. And resumed, exactly where it left off. The snow had let up by late afternoon, leaving behind a soft blanket of white across the lodge grounds. The towering pines shimmered in the fading light, and the air was still. So still, it felt like the world itself was holding its breath. Zaire stood by the lake's edge, bundled in his green puffer jacket, beanie, crooked on his head, and his small hands cupping a pile of smooth stones. He bent slightly and flung one across the water. One skip, 2, 3. Then it sank. "Yes," he whispered to himself with a little fist pump. "That's a record." From the veranda above, Grayson Wolfe stood frozen. He hadn't meant to walk out onto the balcony. He had come up for coffee, for quiet. But then he saw the boy with a posture that mimicked his own at that age. The boy with storm-grey eyes. Grayson stepped closer to the railing. The child picked up another stone and tried again. 1 skip. 2, splash. His curls peeked out beneath his beanie. His small shoulders relaxed as he focused on his task, unaware he was being watched by a man who hadn't blinked in nearly a minute. Grayson felt something shift inside him, something sharp, unsettling, and terrifying. He turned abruptly and headed down the stairs toward the lake path. Zaire looked up when he heard the snow crunch under approaching boots. Grayson slowed as he reached the lake's edge. He didn't know what to say, or if he had the right to speak at all. "Hey," Grayson offered gently. Zaire looked at him, cautiously but not afraid. "Hi, you're pretty good at that." Zaire smiled. "I've been practicing. This lake's better than the one near our apartment." "You live in Atlanta?" "Yeah." "Midtown." Grayson nodded slowly, processing. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to keep his voice even. The boy hesitated for a moment, then answered, "Zaire." Grayson's heart stopped. His breath caught. His mind fought to stay composed. He crouched a little, at the boy's level now, but not too close. "That's a strong name. My mom picked it. She says it means river." Grayson nodded again, almost automatically. "She's smart," he murmured. Zaire tilted his head, inspecting him. "Do you work here or something?" "No," Grayson said softly. "Not exactly." Zaire went back to skipping stones. Grayson couldn't move, couldn't breathe right. That name, those eyes, that dimple when he smirked. There was no denying it. He didn't need a test. He didn't need to ask. He already knew. From the hallway just beyond the veranda, Nia saw them. She'd been on her way out to call Zaire in for dinner when she saw Grayson's frame rounding the hill path. At first, she froze. But when she heard Zaire say his name, his own name, out loud, her entire body tensed. She stepped outside, boots crunching hard against the snow. Grayson turned at the sound, his expression unreadable. "Grayson," she said, voice tight. Zaire turned too. "Mom, this guy's cool. He saw me skip a rock 4 times. She walked toward them without hesitation, her eyes locked on Grayson's. "Zaire, go wash up. Dinner's in 10. But, please." Zaire looked between them, sensing something had shifted. Then he slowly turned and headed toward the lodge, his footsteps leaving a winding trail behind him. When he was out of earshot, Grayson finally spoke. "You didn't tell me." Nia crossed her arms. "I tried." "When?" 3 weeks after the gala. "I called. I emailed. I left a message with your assistant. I never got any of it." "I know. Because your assistant told me you were unavailable. And after that, I stopped trying." His jaw tightened. "You could have pushed harder." She tilted her head. "I was pregnant and alone, Grayson. I had to choose between chasing a ghost and protecting my sanity. I chose me." His eyes flickered. The sharp edge in her voice was calm, not cruel. "I would have," he started. "You left a note," she cut in. "Not a number, not a check-in, not even a message to see if I got home okay." He closed his eyes for a second, jaw flexing as he inhaled through his nose. "He's mine," he finally said. "Yes," she said firmly. "He's yours." "How old?" 5. Almost 6. He stared out at the lake for a long moment. "I missed everything," he murmured. She didn't answer. Because, yes, he had. They walked in silence back toward the lodge. The snow was starting again, soft flakes drifting like whispers. Grayson spoke as they reached the steps. "I want to know him." Nia didn't look at him. "Then show up," she said. "Not like a CEO, not like a man trying to control a situation. Just show up." He didn't reply, but she knew he heard her. Later that night, Zaire was asleep under a blanket on the couch, his robot sketchbook open beside him, pages covered in colorful ideas. Nia sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea, eyes fixed on the flickering fire. Grayson knocked softly on the glass door. She didn't answer at first, then stood and opened it. He stepped in slowly, his coat dusted in snow, his expression softer than she had ever seen it. "I'm not here to take him from you," he said, "or to make demands." "Good," she said simply. "I know I messed up, and I won't try to explain it away, but he's my son, and I don't want to waste another second." Nia looked at him carefully. "You don't get to flip a switch and become a father, Grayson." "I know. It takes time, presence, not money, not apologies." "I'll be present," he said quietly. "If you let me." She studied his face, the way the firelight danced in his tired eyes. "You can start by asking Zaire how he likes his eggs," she said. "Tomorrow morning." A pause, then a faint smile. "I will." And with that, she closed the door behind him, quietly, firmly, but not all the way. Not this time. The morning air inside the lodge smelled like maple syrup, toasted bread, and soft pine from the fire that had been crackling since dawn. Snow still blanketed the windowsills, but inside, the warmth was thick with unspoken anticipation. Zaire sat at the breakfast bar, swinging his legs beneath the stool, eyes darting. Between his sketchbook and the sizzling griddle where Marla flipped pancakes. "I want the ones shaped like a robot head," he insisted, pencil tapping a drawing of one with antennas and square eyes. "You'll get what you get," Marla said with a wink, "and love it like it's the best robot on earth." Nia stood at the counter, sipping coffee, heart unusually calm for what today meant. She glanced toward the hallway as footsteps approached. Slow, unhurried, but steady. Grayson Wolfe stepped into the room wearing a simple black sweater and dark jeans. No coat, no assistant, no phone. Just him. Zaire looked up, blinking. "Hey," Grayson said, offering a slight smile. "Mind if I join you?" Zaire shrugged. "You can sit over there." Grayson took the seat across from him. Nia watched silently from the sink, mug in hand, her expression unreadable. Marla raised an eyebrow toward her and whispered, "You sure about this?" Nia whispered back, "Not even a little." Zaire squinted at Grayson, chewing a corner of toast like it might help him think faster. "You don't look like the other dads at school," he said bluntly. Grayson chuckled under his breath. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" "Neutral," Zaire answered, honest as ever. Nia nearly spit her coffee. Grayson leaned forward slightly. I don't know if your mom told you, but I work a lot. I used to be in charge of a really big company. Why don't I know you? Zaire asked, dropping the question like a pebble into still water. Nia stiffened. Grayson didn't look away. That's a fair question, he said. He looked over at Nia, then back at Zaire. Because I wasn't around. I didn't know about you until yesterday. Zaire's fork paused midair. That's a long time not to know, he said. Grayson nodded slowly. Yes, it is. Zaire's expression didn't change. He just stared for a long moment, as if studying a painting he couldn't quite finish in his head. Are you mad at my mom? He finally asked. No, Grayson said, with more weight than the boy could possibly understand. Never. Are you going to leave again? Nia felt her breath catch. Grayson shook his head. No, I'm not leaving. Zaire picked up his fork again, thoughtful. Okay. But don't be weird. Grayson smiled. I'll do my best. Later that day, the team-building activities kicked off at the far end of the property. Nia oversaw everything. Timing, catering, guest complaints, and an unscheduled snowball fight that ended with one executive limping off laughing. Zaire stayed close but quiet. He watched Grayson from a distance, sometimes scribbling in his sketchbook, sometimes staring. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It was study, like he was trying to figure out how this man fit into the puzzle of his life. During lunch, Nia noticed Zaire doodling something extra detailed. A figure with broad shoulders standing next to a smaller one with curly hair. No labels, but she knew. He hadn't drawn that kind of picture before. That evening, Grayson approached her while she was double-checking the dessert arrangements in the back kitchen. Thank you, he said quietly. She didn't turn right away. For what? For not stopping him from asking the hard questions. She finally looked at him. He deserves answers. I know. I just didn't expect him to be so direct. He's always been that way. Grayson leaned against the doorframe. I can tell he's loved. Completely. He is. I missed too much. Nia didn't respond, because she had thought that sentence 1,000 times. Hearing it now didn't soften it. What do you want from this, Grayson? She asked. Right now? The truth? I want to earn his trust, and yours. I want to be part of his life. She met his eyes. That's not something you declare, then walk away from if it gets hard. I know. Because he doesn't know how to handle abandonment, Grayson. He only knows how to handle love. Grayson's throat tightened. I won't leave. She studied him. Not for charm, not for promises, but for proof. He didn't offer any. That was the first sign she believed him. By bedtime, Zaire had asked if Grayson would sit with him while he colored. It wasn't an invitation. It was a test. Grayson accepted. He didn't look at his phone, didn't ask questions, just sat and watched, asking about colors and why Zaire chose green for the robot's eyes. Because green meant hope, Zaire had said. That answer stayed with Grayson long after Zaire drifted off to sleep. Outside the room, Nia folded blankets and turned off lights. Grayson stepped out, standing quietly near her. He's incredible, he said. I know. I'm still sorry. She nodded once. Tomorrow, she said. He's going sledding. Wants to try the hill behind the lodge. I'll be there. Nia looked at him. Don't promise things you aren't ready to keep. Grayson met her eyes. This time, I am. Fresh snow had fallen overnight, smoothing out every footprint from the day before. The hill behind the lodge sparkled under the rising sun, untouched, quiet, until the sound of Zaire's laughter pierced the cold air. He stood at the top of the slope, gripping a neon green sled like it was a race car. Ready? Nia called from halfway up the incline, her breath rising in clouds. Zaire nodded. I was born ready. You say that every time. She grinned. I mean it every time. A few steps behind Nia, Grayson stood bundled in a charcoal parka, gloves on, watching the boy bounce in place with excitement. He hadn't said much that morning, but he showed up. Exactly when he said he would. That meant something. Zaire positioned the sled. Okay, countdown. 3. Nia started. 2. Grayson joined. 1. Zaire shouted and launched himself forward with a wild cheer. The sled shot down the hill like a bullet, kicking up snow as it flew past tree trunks and frozen bushes. His screams were equal parts thrill and freedom. Grayson exhaled slowly. He's fearless. Nia smiled, watching the boy reach the bottom, tumble off the sled, and throw his arms in the air like he'd won gold. He gets that from my side, she said. They both chuckled, a rare sound between them. Again, Zaire shouted, dragging the sled back up. Grayson stepped forward. Need help? Zaire paused, eyes scanning his face. Then he nodded once and handed him the rope. Only up the hill, he said. Got it. Grayson walked beside him, neither rushing nor hovering, just there. By the third round, Zaire didn't wait to be asked. He simply passed Grayson the sled and started climbing. They found a rhythm. After lunch, they returned to the slope. Nia stayed behind to finish some client calls. Alone with Grayson for the first time, Zaire spoke more. My mom says I was born early, like really early. Grayson nodded. You were excited to meet her, probably. Zaire looked up. Were you scared when she told you about me? Grayson's steps slowed. I didn't know, he said quietly. Not until this week. Zaire thought about that. Were you mad? No. I was sad that I missed everything. Zaire nodded, considering the answer. I don't remember you being there, he said. Like, not in any dreams or anything. Grayson crouched beside him, eye level now. I wish I had been. They stared at each other. Then Zaire shrugged. Okay, but now you are. Grayson didn't speak. He only smiled, a real one this time. Not the boardroom kind, the kind that sat deep in the eyes. Last ride, Zaire shouted, grabbing the sled. Grayson steadied it for him. Zaire took off again, snow kicking into the air behind him. This time, halfway down, the sled caught an edge and spun. He slid sideways and landed with a soft thud near the base of a pine tree. Grayson was already moving. By the time Nia came running from the lodge porch, he was halfway down the hill, sliding the last few feet on his knees. Zaire sat up, dazed but okay. You all right? Grayson asked, brushing snow off his jacket. Zaire winced. My elbow feels weird. Nia dropped beside them. Let me see. He had a small scratch, nothing serious. Still, his eyes were wet with the sting of embarrassment more than pain. I messed up the last ride, he muttered. Grayson knelt beside him. Falling isn't messing up, he said. It means you tried. Zaire looked down, wiping his nose. Then, without speaking, he reached for Grayson's hand. Grayson didn't move for a second. Then he wrapped his gloved hand around Zaire's and helped him up. Nia stood, stunned, not at the fall, but at the choice. Zaire had never reached for anyone before. Not like that. Back inside, Zaire was quiet. Not withdrawn, just tired. Nia helped him into dry clothes, while Grayson made hot cocoa from the lodge's tiny kitchenette, marshmallows included. Zaire sipped slowly, watching cartoons, curled under a blanket on the couch. Nia leaned against the doorframe, watching them both. Grayson caught her gaze and nodded once. She didn't return the gesture. Not yet. But she didn't look away. That night, after Zaire was asleep, Nia found Grayson standing in the snow-covered courtyard behind the lodge, hands in his coat pockets, face turned toward the moon. She joined him in silence. I almost didn't come this weekend, he said. I almost said no. He looked over. But you didn't. No. He exhaled. He's brave. He's mine, she said. Of course he is. Grayson smiled faintly. I'm glad he's getting to know me through moments, not mistakes. Nia crossed her arms. You'll need more than a few sled rides to make up for 5 years. I'm not trying to make up. I'm trying to build forward. She looked at him for a long time. I don't need a CO parent who fades when things get hard. I won't fade. You say that now. I'll say it again tomorrow. And every day after, a gust of wind brushed past them. She didn't say yes, but she didn't walk away. That was enough for tonight. He reached for the man who hadn't been there for 5 years, and called him Dad with a look, not a word. Have you ever seen a child forgive faster than the adults around them? Do you know what it's like to protect your peace, but still hope someone steps up? Nia didn't chase closure. Grayson didn't deserve her forgiveness. But Zaire? He didn't need words to know who showed up. Drop a comment. Presence matters more than promises if you felt Zaire's quiet strength. I've been near before, if you've ever carried it all without asking for help. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more powerful real-life stories here on Mr. Charles Stories. The weekend ended quietly. No announcements, no promises, no grand displays. Just a boy who now reached for a hand he once didn't know. Just a mother who watched, cautiously hopeful. Just a man trying to fit into a life already in motion. By the time Nia and Zaire boarded the car back to the airport, the snow had melted enough to reveal gravel and grass beneath. Life had already started moving forward. Grayson stood on the porch of the lodge, hands in his pockets, watching them load into the SUV. Nia met his eyes for a second. No smile, but no wall either. Zaire rolled down the window. You coming to Atlanta? Grayson stepped closer. If your mom lets me. Zaire grinned. She likes to pretend she's scarier than she is. Nia leaned forward. Excuse me? Grayson laughed. Take care, Zaire, he said. We'll talk soon. Okay, Zaire replied, waving with his gloved hand as the car pulled away. That might have been the end of it. A quiet moment. A hopeful start. But someone had snapped a photo. Monday morning, while sipping her tea and reviewing invoices, Nia's phone buzzed. 6 missed calls. Marla 3 unread messages. You need to see this. She tapped the first link. Her heart stopped. There it was. A high-resolution image. Grayson crouched next to Zaire by the lake, helping him tie his boots. Nia was in the background, blurred but visible. The caption read, Who's the mystery child with billionaire CEO Grayson Wolf? Another outlet had already twisted it. Is the Wolf heir a secret child? Twitter investigates. Her tea went cold in her hand. By noon, it was everywhere. Trending on 10th, circulating on blogs, reposted on business gossip sites. Commenters speculated. Some thought Zaire was his nephew. Others did side-by-side comparisons of Grayson and the boy's eyes. She turned her phone off, then back on, then off again. When the office phone rang, she let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. Marla peeked in. You want me to lie? She asked gently. Nia shook her head. No. But I don't want to talk either. That evening, Grayson called. She debated answering, then pressed accept. He didn't waste time. I saw it. I know. My PR team already sent me statements to choose from. She didn't reply. They all say the same thing. Deny, distance, wait for it to blow over. Of course they do. He was silent. Then, I'm not doing it. What? I'm not denying him. Her breath caught. I don't care about fallout. I don't care what the board says. I'm not going to pretend like he doesn't exist. Nia swallowed hard. This isn't just about you, Grayson. I know. That's why I'm calling. He paused. I want your permission. For what? I want to tell the truth. I want to say that I have a son. That I missed years. But I'm here now. She didn't respond immediately. Her thoughts ran too fast. What about your company? The press? Your investors? They'll deal with it. I'll deal with it. And what about Zaire? Grayson's voice softened. He deserves better than rumors. He deserves to know I'm proud to call him my son, even if the world finds out before he's ready. Nia pressed her hand to her chest. I don't want him dragged into media mess. I'll make sure they protect his name. No school, no address, no exposure. Just acknowledgement. She closed her eyes. This won't be clean, Grayson. I know. Silence stretched between them. Then she finally whispered, okay. The press conference happened the next day. No stage, no cameras, Just a Zoom screen with Grayson in a plain office, answering questions from reporters. One asked directly, "Is it true the child in the photo is yours?" He looked into the camera, shoulders square. "Yes. His name is Zaire. He's my son." That was it. Simple. Direct. Unflinching. The reporters scrambled. Some tried to press for details, names, age, paternity. He shut them down. "I missed the first 5 years of his life," he said. "I'm not missing another second. And I'm not going to share what he hasn't given me permission to." That night, Nia received a voicemail. "Hey," Grayson's voice said, rougher than usual. "I just wanted to say thank you for trusting me. I meant every word." Click. She didn't respond, but she listened to it twice. The backlash came fast, not from strangers on the internet, but from those who signed million-dollar contracts, expecting Grayson Wolf to remain the clean, calculated face of Wolf Innovations. By noon, 4 board members had requested an emergency meeting. By 3 p.m., his face was plastered on finance blogs, business networks, and investor forums, not because of scandal, but because of silence, because he told the truth. No PR filter, no damage control. Just a man admitting he had a son he never knew and now couldn't forget. By the next morning, sponsors began pulling out of upcoming campaigns. Stocks dipped. Emails poured in from legal and marketing. The general counsel used the phrase, "loss of public confidence." But Grayson didn't blink. He sat in the same leather chair, hands folded, while the board went around the table trying to frame his situation as a PR liability. "This could have been avoided," one of them snapped. "You could have given us time to prep statements," another scolded. Grayson finally leaned forward. "I didn't need your permission, to be honest," he said. "I'm his father, not just a CEO." Silence followed. "You've always put the company first," the CFO said quietly. "And now?" Grayson looked out the window of the glass tower that had once meant everything to him. "Now, I'm putting my son first." That evening, Zaire sat cross-legged on the floor of Nia's apartment, stacking blocks like they were meant to hold up cities. His head was full of questions, but his mouth was quiet. He had overheard something at school. A parent whispering, "That's the boy from the news." Nia noticed how quiet he'd been on the ride home. She let him have space until he finally asked, "Why do grown-ups talk so much when they don't know anything?" She turned off the stove and knelt beside him. "They're curious, but they don't always ask the right way." "Are they mad at him?" She paused. "Some might be, but your dad told the truth. That matters more." Zaire looked down. "I don't want people looking at me like I'm some secret." "You're not a secret," she said, pulling him close. "You're the best thing I've ever done." He nodded slowly, leaning into her arms. Grayson called later that night. "I stepped down," he said. Nia was silent for a moment. "What?" "I handed over day-to-day control, temporarily, until things calmed down." She walked to the window, pressing her fingers to the cold glass. "Why?" "So I can move to Atlanta full-time, be near him. Help." She closed her eyes. "You're serious?" "Yes." "What about your empire, Grayson?" The next morning, he arrived at Zaire's school for pickup. Not in a town car. No security, just him. Zaire spotted him through the classroom window and came out slowly, backpack slung over one shoulder. "You're here? I told you I would be." Zaire stood still for a moment, then quietly said, "I like when you show up." Grayson swallowed the emotion rising in his throat. "Me too." That weekend, they visited a bookstore downtown. Zaire picked out 3 graphic novels and 1 thick space encyclopedia. Grayson bought them all. Later, they sat at the park, hot cocoa in hand, just watching the clouds. Zaire pointed upward. "That one looks like a T-Rex with a mohawk." Grayson laughed. "You've got a good imagination." "I've had time to practice." That sentence hit harder than anything else. By Sunday night, Grayson was assembling a bed in the guest room of his new rental house, just 10 minutes from Nia's apartment. He texted her, "Bed frame complete. Screws left over, 2. Confidence level, medium. She replied with a laughing emoji. Then, thanks for staying consistent. His fingers hovered over the screen. He typed, I meant it. I'm here. Not going anywhere. Then deleted it. He knew better now. Words mattered. But presence mattered more. The first Monday of their new routine arrived with a chill in the air and syrup on Zahir's cheek. Nia stood in the kitchen, flipping pancakes while balancing a phone call on speaker with a client who couldn't decide between ivory or pearl napkins. Zahir sat at the counter, legs swinging, half-dressed and halfway through a milk mustache. It was chaos. Beautiful, predictable chaos. Until the door buzzed. Zahir jumped. That's him. Before Nia could respond, he ran to the front door and yanked it open. Grayson stood there in a dark hoodie, black joggers, and a paper bag in hand. Peace offering, he said. Nia raised an eyebrow from across the room. You brought breakfast to a woman already cooking breakfast? He held up the bag. Croissants, not pancakes. I did the market research. Zahir giggled. Croissants. Win. Traitor, Nia muttered under her breath. Grayson stepped inside like it was normal now, not with overconfidence, but with quiet care. He set the bag on the table and crouched beside Zahir. You dressed yourself today. Zahir grinned proudly. Except my socks. I put 2 lefts. Grayson laughed. That's a power move. Nia poured juice into a glass and tried not to overanalyze how easily he blended into the morning. This was her space, her rhythm, her child, and yet, it didn't feel invaded. It felt steady, like maybe, for once, she wasn't the only adult in the room trying to keep everything balanced. They rode to school together in Grayson's SUV, Nia in the passenger seat, Zahir in the back with his book bag and a half-eaten croissant. Traffic was light, but the silence was heavy. Not uncomfortable, just full of everything they hadn't figured out how to say yet. I can pick him up today if that works, Grayson said as they turned onto Zahir's school street. Nia hesitated. He usually does aftercare on Mondays. I can stay with him. Work from the house. Zahir perked up. Can we build the robot I drew? Grayson looked in the rearview mirror. Absolutely. Nia looked between them, then nodded. Okay. It wasn't surrender. It was trust. Slowly earned. After drop-off, Grayson didn't leave immediately. Instead, he parked outside the cafe down the street from Nia's office and followed her in. I figured we should talk, he said, sliding into the seat across from her booth. She ordered coffee. He got tea. No flirting. No tension. Just 2 people trying to untangle something bigger than both of them. You stepping down from Wolf Innovations, she started. That was huge. He nodded. Yeah, but I meant what I said. This, him, is what matters. You've always been decisive. But this isn't business, Grayson. This is parenting. It's not built on power moves. I know. I'm not here to control. I'm here to contribute. She sipped her coffee. And when it gets messy, I won't walk. She watched him. You're saying all the right things. Because I believe them now. She tapped her fingers on the cup quietly. What about when you get tired? I'll rest, not run. Something softened behind her eyes. But before she could reply, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She ignored it. Buzzed again. Same number. She excused herself and stepped outside to answer. Hello? A clipped voice replied. Miss Carter, this is Chanel Fromberg. I represent a national media group that's producing a feature on modern families. We'd like to discuss featuring you and your son in a photo editorial. Nia's stomach dropped. No. Miss Carter, I said no. Please do not call again. She hung up. When she returned, Grayson could tell something shifted. Reporters? He asked. She nodded, jaw clenched. They want photos, stories, his face on magazines. They won't get it, Grayson said firmly. I know you can shut it down, but I can't. My business is tied to my name. I can't hide the way you can. He leaned forward. Then let me protect you both. Not by controlling you, but by standing in front of you if you need it. She looked at him. And for the first time since their son was born, she didn't feel like she had to be the only one on guard. Grayson arrived at Nia's place just before 3 p.m. with a grocery bag in one hand and his laptop bag in the other. Zaire had just come in from school, a burst of energy and excitement. "Look what I made in art class," Zaire shouted, holding up a bright painted sheet filled with stars and squiggly galaxies. "Whoa," Grayson said, crouching. "That's next-level cosmic design." Zaire beamed. "It's our robot's universe." Nia smiled faintly from the kitchen. She hadn't even asked him to come by this early, but somehow Grayson knew how to read the room. He always showed up before she had to ask. She wasn't used to that. "Let me wash up," Grayson said, and he headed to the bathroom like he'd done it 100 times before. It was subtle, but Nia noticed. No awkwardness, no overstepping. He was adapting, listening. That counted. Back in the living room, Zaire had already cleared a spot on the rug for their robot building plans. He laid out sketches, plastic wheels, cardboard, and some wires he'd collected from old toys. "I brought tools," Grayson said, pulling out a small kit. "You're the best," Zaire whispered like it was a secret. They got to work. Zaire talked non-stop, explaining each part like a CEO giving a product demo. Grayson nodded, followed instructions, made jokes. Nia watched from the kitchen doorway, arms folded. She wasn't sure what surprised her more, how well Grayson connected with Zaire, or how natural it felt to watch them build something together. They weren't trying too hard. They were just together. After an hour, the robot had legs and a wobbling torso, covered in smudged fingerprints and glitter glue. It was perfect in all its messy glory. "I'm going to name him Bolt," Zaire announced. Grayson tapped the robot's head. Keo founder approval. Granted. They laughed. Later, Nia set dinner on the table. Spaghetti and meatballs. Zaire insisted they all sit together. Grayson didn't question it. "This is good," he said, after the first bite. Nia shrugged. "Box sauce. Still better than anything I can make." Zaire nodded. Mom's sauce always wins. They ate like a family. They laughed like a family. And when the meal ended, and Zaire stood to take his plate to the sink without being asked, Grayson looked over at Nia and mouthed, "You did good." She swallowed the lump in her throat. She never needed validation, but hearing it now, it landed differently. After dinner, Zaire turned to Grayson and asked, "Can you tuck me in tonight?" Grayson blinked. "Me? Yeah. Mom always does. But you're here now." Nia didn't speak. She just waited. Grayson nodded slowly. "I'd love to." Upstairs, Zaire brushed his teeth and picked out a book about time-traveling dinosaurs. He climbed into bed, pulled the covers up, and handed the book to Grayson. "Can you do the voices too?" Zaire asked. Grayson grinned. "Of course." Nia stood by the door, arms crossed, watching as Grayson narrated with goofy accents, exaggerated roars and dramatic pauses. Zaire laughed, his face full of joy. When the story ended, Zaire yawned and whispered, "Don't leave again, okay?" Grayson froze. "I won't," he said. Zaire nodded once and closed his eyes. Downstairs, the silence stretched. Grayson joined Nia on the couch. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For letting me in. For trusting me, even after everything." Nia leaned back. "It's not about trusting you. It's about watching what you do when it's not easy." He nodded slowly. "That's fair." She looked at him. "You're not the same man who left that note." He swallowed. "I don't want to be." She turned to face him fully. "And you're not here to play dad for a few weekends. You're here for the real stuff?" "Yes, even when it's hard. Especially then." A long pause. "I see the way he looks at you," she said. "Like he's been waiting for this." "For you." "I've been waiting too," he said. "I just didn't know it." She stood. "I need to finish up some emails." He stood too, respectful. "Want me to lock up on my way out?" he asked. "No," she said. "You can stay a while. He sleeps better when he knows you're here." Grayson exhaled. "Thanks, Nia." She nodded. Brick by brick, he said quietly. She smiled. And tomorrow, we do breakfast again. She turned to the kitchen. Yeah, she said. But I'm still cooking. He laughed softly and settled into the armchair, listening to the hum of the house. Not just any house, their son's home. And slowly, maybe his too. He wasn't trying to rewrite the past. He was building something new. And this time, he wasn't going anywhere. The sunlight hit the windows of Nia's studio just right, casting a golden hue across her desk. It was a quiet Saturday morning in Atlanta, and Zaire was still asleep, upstairs after a long night of building Lego castles with Grayson. Nia sipped her coffee in silence, reviewing a new proposal from a luxury client in New York. The kind of client she used to dream about before her world was split in two. One, half building a business from scratch, the other raising a child with no backup. Grayson had changed that, not with grand declarations, but with his consistent presence. He had now been living just 2 streets away for 3 months, never overbearing, never barging in. Just present. Zaire thrived under that rhythm. His grades improved. He laughed more. He asked more questions. The boy who used to cling to her when strangers smiled at him was now comfortable walking into a room if he knew his dad would show up. Nia couldn't deny the difference. And yet, every step Grayson took closer, she found herself taking half a step back. Not out of resentment, but caution. She had built too much from scratch to let anyone bulldoze her peace again. As she closed her laptop, her phone buzzed. A message from Grayson. Made breakfast. Zaire's favorite. "Want to come by?" She smiled without meaning to. He was learning her boundaries, not assuming, but inviting. Still, she didn't answer immediately. She glanced toward the stairs, where the sound of bare feet slowly made their way down. Zaire appeared, rubbing his eyes. "Curls a mess." "Mom," he mumbled. "Do I smell pancakes?" She chuckled. "You do, and unless you want mine, which are flat and kind of sad, we better go see what your dad whipped up." His eyes lit up. "Yes." They walked the short distance to Grayson's place. The home was modern but warm, with soft lighting, oak wood flooring, and Zaire's drawings already pinned to a corkboard in the hallway. Grayson wore a black hoodie, barefoot, flipping pancakes, while humming some old-school soul song under his breath. Nia leaned in the doorway, arms folded. Watching him like this, loose, smiling, domestic, it felt like peeking into an alternate life. One they almost had, one they might still build. "Good morning," Grayson said without turning. "I made the chocolate chip ones, no raisins. I've learned my lesson." "Bless you," she said, stepping in. Zaire ran to the table where his plate was already waiting. "Eat slowly, please," Nia reminded him. "No promises." Zaire grinned. As they sat down together, Nia noticed the smallest things. Grayson no longer checked his phone obsessively. He asked Zaire about school, not just grades, but his favorite part of the day. And when Zaire spoke, Grayson listened like every word mattered. It was surreal. Halfway through breakfast, Grayson looked up. "Nia," he said carefully, "can I ask you something, a little personal?" She paused. "Go ahead. When you found out you were pregnant, were you scared?" She held his gaze for a moment, then nodded. "Terrified," she said honestly. "I was alone. No backup plan. Just me and 2 pink lines." He lowered his eyes, shame flickering behind them. "I deserved that," he said quietly. "I didn't say it to guilt you," she replied. "You asked. That's the truth." Grayson sighed. "I want to make space for more truth between us." Nia raised an eyebrow. "Such as, I want to know how you survived, how you made it work, and what you still don't trust me with." The table went silent. Zaire, thankfully, was too busy building a syrup dam with his pancake to notice the shift. Nia leaned back. "All right," she said. "You want truth?" "Yes." "Okay. I didn't survive. Not at first. I cried in the shower so Zaire wouldn't hear me. I worked weddings while hiding morning sickness. I almost quit twice. But then I realized I couldn't wait for someone to rescue me. I had to rescue myself, Grayson nodded, expression tight. And now I don't rescue people, and I don't expect them to rescue me either. He nodded again. Fair, she softened. But I see you trying, and that matters. After breakfast, Zaire went to the living room to watch cartoons. Grayson and Nia moved to the back patio. The morning air was cool, but not cold. They sat side by side in comfortable silence. I got an offer to speak at a tech conference in DC, he said after a moment. Oh, it's 3 days. Zaire's on break. I was thinking of taking him. Maybe some museum time. Father-son stuff. She hesitated. He's never been on a plane. I know, Grayson replied. I'd fly commercial. Keep it low-key. No private jet showboating. Nia cracked a small smile. You're adapting well. He laughed. Trying. She sipped her coffee, then said, let me talk to him about it. But I think it's a great idea. Grayson looked relieved. Thank you. They sat in silence again. But this time, it wasn't tense. It was full of possibilities. Later that afternoon, back at her place, Zaire came up to her with his sketchpad. Mom, he said, can you help me pick colors for this drawing? She looked down. It was a picture of their family, him in the middle, her on one side, Grayson on the other. They were holding hands. She swallowed hard. This is beautiful. Zaire looked at her, so matter-of-fact. Is this okay? He asked. Us being a team? She nodded, slowly. Yes. It's more than okay. He smiled and went back to coloring. That night, Nia lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. It was happening. They were healing, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. She didn't know what the next step would look like, but for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of tomorrow. She was hopeful. The flight to DC was early, and for once, Zaire didn't complain about waking up before the sun. His little suitcase rolled noisily across the airport floor as he held tightly to Grayson's hand. Nia stood a few feet behind them, watching, not just out of concern, but curiosity. She was seeing a new version of both of them. Text me when you land, she said, adjusting Zaire's scarf. I will, Grayson replied, and I'll send photos. Zaire gave her a tight hug. I'll bring you something cool, okay? Okay, baby. Have fun. She knelt and kissed his cheek, then looked up at Grayson. Don't overpack him with sugar. And no jumping on hotel beds. He grinned. No promises. She gave him a look. Okay. Responsible dad mode. Got it. As they disappeared through security, Nia stood still for a beat, arms folded across her chest. The terminal buzzed around her, but her thoughts were focused. Grayson was stepping up, not out of guilt, not out of pressure, but because he wanted to. She walked back to her car alone, but for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. In DC, Grayson and Zaire explored like best friends on an adventure. They visited the Air and Space Museum, stood in awe at the Lincoln Memorial, and even tried hot dogs from a vendor who claimed he once served the president. Grayson snapped a photo of Zaire, laughing with mustard on his nose, and sent it to Nia with the caption, Day 1 success. Also, we may need napkins. She replied with a heart emoji, no words. But he knew what it meant. That night, after the tech panel and media obligations, Grayson sat with Zaire on the hotel bed. You having fun? Zaire nodded. A lot. Grayson hesitated. Can I ask you something? Okay. When I wasn't around, before I knew, were you ever sad? Zaire was quiet for a moment. Sometimes, when other kids said, my dad this or my dad that, but I didn't know what I was missing, so it didn't hurt that much. Grayson swallowed hard. I wish I'd been there. You're here now. That simple sentence broke something open in him. He leaned over and hugged his son tight. Thanks, buddy. Zaire yawned. Can we do more trips like this? You bet. Back in Atlanta, Nia had dinner with her aunt. Over roasted chicken and sweet tea, her aunt said what Nia had been trying not to think about. You still love that man. Nia didn't answer right away. She picked at her cornbread. "I love what he's becoming," she said at last. "I love what I see when he looks at Zaire. And when he looks at you." Nia didn't answer that. Her aunt reached across the table. "He's trying, baby. That doesn't erase the past, but it counts for something." "I know." The next morning, a package arrived at Nia's door. Inside was a wooden snow globe with a tiny replica of the Lincoln Memorial. A note was taped to the bottom. "Zaire picked this. Said it looks strong and calm, like you." Nia held it for a long time before placing it on her dresser. When the boys returned, Zaire ran into her arms like he'd been gone a year. Grayson stood behind him, tired but smiling. "He didn't miss a beat," Grayson said. "We stuck to the itinerary, only had one minor candy overload." Nia laughed. "Sounds like a win." That night, Grayson asked if he could stay for dinner. Nia agreed. Zaire told stories between bites of spaghetti, while Grayson and Nia exchanged looks over wine glasses and laughter. After Zaire went to bed, Grayson helped with dishes. "You know," he said, drying a plate, "I'm trying to figure out how to make all of this permanent." Nia raised an eyebrow. "Define all of this." "You, me, Zaire. Mornings that start with pancakes and nights that end with family dinners. You think it's that easy?" "No. I think it's that worth it." She leaned against the counter. "So what's your plan? Another big gesture?" "No, just showing up, over and over, until it becomes boring." She tilted her head. "Boring? In the best way," he said, smiling. "Predictable, steady, safe." That word, safe, landed differently. "Keep showing up," she said. "I will." Weeks passed. Spring crept in. Flowers bloomed in her yard. Zaire had his first school play. Grayson brought flowers for both of them. Nia's business landed its biggest client yet, thanks to a subtle referral from Grayson. One Sunday, Zaire spent the afternoon at Grayson's. Nia stayed behind, organizing her office. That evening, she heard a knock. Grayson stood there, holding a photo frame. "I found this in Zaire's backpack. Thought you should have it." It was a photo of the three of them at the park, Zaire on Grayson's shoulders, Nia laughing in the foreground. She took it slowly. "Thank you." He didn't leave right away. "I miss you," he said quietly. "Not just co-parenting. I miss us." She looked down. "I'm scared." "I know, but I'm not asking you to forget the past. I'm asking if we can build something better now." She took a deep breath. "No rush," she said. "Let's just keep showing up." He smiled. "Deal." A few days later, she came home to find her porch freshly painted. No note, no text, but she knew it was him. That was how he proved himself. One little thing at a time. Grayson didn't win Nia over with flowers or speeches. He earned his way back into her life by showing up every day. No pressure, no perfection, just presence. Comment: I believe in showing up if this story reminds you of someone worth fighting for. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more stories that touch your heart and remind you healing is possible. The day started like any other. Sunlight spilled into Nia's kitchen as the smell of cinnamon pancakes filled the air. Zaire sat at the counter, legs swinging as he drew superheroes on a napkin. Grayson stood across from him, flipping pancakes like a seasoned breakfast chef. "Extra syrup?" he asked, glancing at Nia. She shook her head, amused. "He's already wired." "Half a drop, please." Zaire grinned. "He knows what I like, though." Grayson winked. "That's because I'm learning." Nia turned back to her emails, but the warmth in her chest lingered. This wasn't the life she planned, but it was the one growing roots. That afternoon, they attended a school fundraiser at the local community center. Zaire's class was selling lemonade, and Grayson was somehow roped into managing the booth. He wore a volunteer badge and a goofy apron that said, "Lemon Boss." "You know, I used to manage billion-dollar contracts," he told Nia as she handed him change for a customer. "Now I'm getting squeezed for quarters." She smiled. "Welcome to parenthood." They stayed for hours, laughing with other families, watching Zaire play tag with classmates. Neighbors waved. Teachers smiled. Grayson fit right in. As the crowd began to thin out, a woman approached their booth. Mid-30s, blonde hair pulled back tight, power heels, designer bag. Her eyes scanned Grayson, then landed on Nia. "Well," she said with a crisp voice, "I see the rumors are true." Grayson's smile faded. Vanessa Worthington. She was a senior VP at a rival tech firm. Also his ex, not just any ex, the one the press had once called his future wife. Nia's stomach dropped. "I came to donate," Vanessa said, pulling out her wallet. "Didn't expect to find the CEO of Wolf Tech running a lemonade stand." "I'm not with Wolf Tech anymore," he said. Stepped down. "Oh? I thought you'd die in that chair." Grayson didn't flinch. "Turns out some things matter more." Vanessa's eyes narrowed as she glanced at Nia. "This is the reason, I assume." "I don't owe you explanations," he replied calmly. "Of course not." Her voice sharpened. "But the board's been calling. They're not thrilled about your rebranding." Nia stepped forward. "Is there something you need?" Vanessa looked her up and down. "I see you've upgraded your type, Grayson." Grayson's voice dropped. "Enough." But before Nia could speak, Zaire ran up and hugged her waist. "Mom, I sold 5 cups. Can I get ice cream now?" Vanessa blinked. She looked at the boy, then back at Grayson, and suddenly the pieces clicked in her head. "He's yours." Neither Nia nor Grayson replied. Vanessa chuckled coldly. "No wonder the media's been buzzing. The mystery child, the secret reason behind your sudden disappearance." Grayson's jaw tensed. "Don't twist this." "I don't have to," she said with a smug smile. "They will." And with that, she turned and walked away, heels clicking like daggers on pavement. That night, silence filled Nia's house. Zaire was asleep upstairs. Grayson sat at the kitchen table, staring at his phone. "They'll publish it," he said quietly. "Vanessa knows how to spin a story." "I don't care," Nia said. He looked up. She stepped closer. "I don't care about the press. I care about Zaire, about us." "But you'll be dragged into this," he said. "You and him." "I've lived through worse," she replied. "I raised a black son on my own for 6 years. What they say won't break me." He reached for her hand. "You sure?" She squeezed it. "I'm sure." The article dropped 3 days later. Exclusive: billionaire Grayson Wolf secretly fathered child, steps down from company. It trended for hours. There were interviews, speculation. A few podcasts even invited Nia to speak. She declined all of them. But one afternoon, she picked up Zaire from school and noticed something different. Whispers, stares, parents glancing too long. In the car, Zaire was quiet. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded. "Did I do something wrong?" Her heart clenched. "No, baby, you did nothing wrong." He looked down. "They said I was a secret." She parked the car and turned to him. "You were never a secret to me. You are my whole world. And now, you're part of his too. That's not shameful. It's sacred." Zaire blinked back tears. "Then why are people mad? Because they don't understand. And sometimes people fear what they don't understand." He nodded slowly. "But we understand, right?" She kissed his forehead. "We always have." Grayson knew what he had to do. He called a press conference. No PR spin, no legal team, just a simple backdrop and a podium. When he stepped up to the microphone, the room quieted. "My name is Grayson Wolf. I've made a lot of decisions in boardrooms, behind closed doors, under bright lights. But today, I'm making one as a man, a father." Cameras flashed. "I have a son. His name is Zaire. He is the best thing I never planned for, but always needed." He paused. "I stepped down from my company not because I was hiding, but because I was finally ready to stop hiding. My legacy won't be written in market shares or IPOs. It will be in school plays and bedtime stories." Reporters asked questions. He answered only some. One asked, "Do you regret how this came out?" Grayson replied, "I regret not being there sooner, but I don't regret today." The next evening, Nia stood at her window, watching the sky darken. A knock came. Grayson stood there, shoulders square, but his eyes unsure. "I said it," he whispered. "All of it." "I saw," she said. "I don't know what happens next." Nia stepped forward. "You come in. You help Zaire with his reading. You hold my hand when it's hard. That's what happens next." Grayson exhaled. "I can do that." As he stepped inside, Zaire ran up and hugged him without words. That was the moment that sealed it. Not the press conference, not the headlines. A child's quiet embrace. A family no longer in hiding. And love, spoken, not in a whisper, but in action. The living room had never felt more alive. Grayson sat cross-legged on the floor, Zaire beside him with books sprawled everywhere. They weren't just reading, they were creating voices for each character. Zaire's high, pitched squeals echoing through the walls, Grayson's deeper tones grounding the story. Nia watched from the kitchen doorway, her heart full. 6 months ago, she'd never imagined this. She had raised Zaire in silence, protected him from a world that had judged her even before he was born. She had been the mother, the provider, the protector, all in one. Now, there was a shift, a balance, not perfect but steady. Grayson glanced over his shoulder, catching her gaze. "You sure you're okay with me staying tonight?" he asked. Nia nodded. "You're not a guest, Grayson. You're family." Later that night, Zaire finally drifted to sleep with a comic book clutched in his hand. Grayson tucked the covers around him carefully, his fingers brushing the boy's curls. "Good night, champ," he whispered. Then he stepped out, closing the door softly behind him. Nia waited by the couch, her arms folded, not out of anger, out of habit. She still wasn't used to sharing space, to letting someone carry some of the weight. Grayson walked over and sat beside her. "You handled everything like a queen," he said. Even when the press storm hit, she gave a soft chuckle. "You think that was hard? Try solo grocery shopping with a toddler who thinks every cereal aisle is a racetrack." He smiled. "I missed so much." Nia turned to face him. "But you're here now, and he doesn't feel the lack anymore." His face turned serious. "And you?" She hesitated. "I won't lie, Grayson. I built walls around my heart. For years. It's hard to let them fall overnight." He nodded. "Then I'll stand here while you dismantle them, brick by brick. I'm not going anywhere." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full of things they didn't need to say out loud. The next week, Nia had a job interview. A real opportunity, not part-time temp work, but a creative lead role at an up-and-coming brand with flexible hours and benefits. Grayson offered to take Zaire to school while she got ready. She stood in front of the mirror that morning, nerves clawing at her stomach. He appeared in the doorway, holding Zaire's Spider-Man lunchbox. "You've got this," he said. She smiled. "You sound more confident than me. I've seen you juggle a million things without blinking. Any company would be lucky to have you." She stepped forward and adjusted his tie, a tiny gesture of closeness. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For showing up." Nia nailed the interview. They offered her the position before she even left the building. That night, she came home with a bouquet of fresh daisies, her favorite, sitting on the counter with a note. "Your strength inspires me, G." Zaire danced around the living room when he heard she got the job. "Does that mean I can get extra juice boxes now?" Grayson lifted him up. "You're going to be the son of a working mom and a dad who finally figured out what matters. Juice boxes are the least of what you'll get." They laughed, but behind that laughter was a new rhythm forming, a shared life. But peace rarely lasts uninterrupted. One evening, a letter arrived in Nia's mailbox. From Wolf Tech, a formal summons. She read it 3 times before sitting down. Grayson entered the room moments later, watching her expression darken. "What is it?" "They want Zaire's birth records," she said. "They're requesting DNA confirmation, legally." Through the firm's board council. Grayson's face hardened. They're trying to protect their legacy, even when I've already walked away. What do we do? He didn't hesitate. We stand firm. That night, they called their attorney. Grayson didn't want to fight in public, but he wouldn't let his son be reduced to a number on a spreadsheet. They filed a cease and desist. Grayson released a statement reaffirming his departure and condemning the company's actions as intrusive and unethical. And then, surprisingly, Wolf Tech backed off. Perhaps it was the bad press, or the threat of court, or, maybe, someone on the board remembered that business should never come before blood. In the weeks that followed, life moved forward. Zaire started soccer practice. Grayson never missed a game. He cheered loudly, embarrassingly so, until Zaire begged him to tone it down. "Dad, you're louder than Coach Davis." They went to the movies. They had game nights. Nia and Grayson took turns planning weekend outings, everything from museum trips to backyard camping. But in quiet moments, they still had work to do. "Do you think we'll ever be normal?" Nia asked one night as they washed dishes together. Grayson handed her a wet plate. "We already are." "This is our normal." She smiled. "Messy, complicated, loud, and full of love," he added. "Don't forget that part." She leaned against his shoulder. "No, I won't." The real shift came one Sunday morning. They were all in the kitchen. Nia making breakfast, Grayson dancing with Zaire to old-school R&B on the radio. Zaire spun in circles, giggling uncontrollably. Grayson dipped him, pretending to be a ballroom dancer. And now, the final move. Zaire shrieked, "No!" They collapsed into laughter, and in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the past, not the whispers, not the storms they'd weathered, only the present. A mother, a father, a son, and a love that had once been hidden, but now stood boldly in the light. The sound of utensils clinking gently against porcelain filled the quiet space of Nia's kitchen. Zaire sat at the island, legs swinging under the high stool, head tilted as he worked through a puzzle book while munching on cereal. Grayson, leaning on the counter across from him, smiled faintly at the concentration on the boy's face. It had been 3 weeks since the lodge retreat. 3 weeks since Grayson moved into a home 2 streets down. And 3 weeks since life took a turn no one had anticipated. Not even Nia. She hadn't asked him to relocate. He did it on his own. Said nothing until she saw the moving truck and him unloading boxes in sweatpants and a white tee. No entourage, no staff, no press, just him and a new address. At first she had questions, not verbal ones, just the kind that brewed behind a long stare through her living room blinds. But when Zaire ran down the street yelling, "Mom, Mr. Grayson's here again," her heart softened. Grayson had taken his role seriously, not in a performative way, but with presence. He never missed Zaire's school pickup. He helped with homework. He brought snacks to soccer practice and even volunteered at the school book fair, which shocked not only Nia, but half the PTA moms. "He's handsome," one whispered. "He's trying," Nia responded simply. Still, even as things settled, her trust lagged behind. One morning, as Zaire disappeared into his room to grab his backpack, Nia caught Grayson watching her from across the kitchen. "You're still holding back," he said. She paused, unsure whether to respond. He didn't press, just reached for his coat. "I'll walk him to school." Later that day, Nia met with a new client. A luxury wedding set for spring courtesy of Grayson's referral. It was clear he was helping, without asking permission or needing praise. But when she returned home and found him fixing Zaire's bike in her driveway, shirt smudged with oil and a smile on his face, something cracked in her. "You don't have to prove anything," she said. "I'm not," he replied. "I'm just showing up. That's the difference." That night, after Zaire fell asleep, Grayson stayed for tea. No wine, no flirting, just quiet, honest conversation. "I never imagined fatherhood this way," he admitted. She watched him. "How did you imagine it?" He exhaled. "I didn't, that's the truth. I was married to the company. I thought love would come after success, but success never tucked anyone in. It never asked me about my day. And now? He looked at her, steady. Now I see what I missed. And I don't want to miss any more. Her heart stirred, but fear held her still. Don't rush me, she whispered. I'm not, he said. I'm waiting. As he stood to leave, Zaire's voice called out sleepily. Can he stay for movie night? Grayson looked at Nia. She hesitated, then nodded. They sat on the couch, Zaire between them, blanket pulled high. The movie played, but Grayson barely watched. His hand rested lightly beside hers. Their fingers brushed. She didn't move. For the first time in years, her house didn't feel like a place she was surviving in. It felt full. Still, after Grayson left, she stood at the kitchen sink, staring out the window, her heart uncertain. She knew what he wanted, and she knew what she felt. But love wasn't about sudden declarations. Not for her, not anymore. It was about consistency, about choosing each other when the spotlight fades and the day is ordinary. Tomorrow, she'd decide if she could take that next step. Tonight, she'd rest. She glanced at the empty teacup beside his on the counter and smiled, a small, cautious smile, but real all the same. Grayson showed up at the school's spring fair, not just as a parent, but as a volunteer. He helped set up the tents, tied balloons with the PTA moms, and even stood in line for the dunk tank, all because Zaire begged him to. When Zaire hit the target and dunked him, the boy laughed so hard he nearly fell off the bench. Grayson climbed out of the tank, water dripping from his suit pants, and grinned like he hadn't in years. Nia stood under the shade of the food stall, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold with quiet amusement. After the event, Zaire crashed in the back seat of Grayson's SUV, mouth stained. With blue cotton candy, arms wrapped around a stuffed lion he'd won, Grayson glanced at Nia across the console. You sure he's not mine? That dramatic flair, the sugar crash nap. That's textbook Wolf. She chuckled, shaking her head. I'll give you the flair, the love of candy. That's all me. They rode in comfortable silence for a while, until Grayson spoke again, softer this time. You were right, you know, about showing up. I used to think presence was optional, that intentions were enough. And now? She asked, eyes on the road ahead. Now I realize presence is the point. At home, Zaire stirred briefly, then dozed off again. Grayson gently lifted him from the car, carried him inside, and tucked him into bed without waking him. Nia watched from the hallway, arms folded, heart pulled tight. Downstairs, they sat on the couch, not too close, not too far. Grayson broke the silence. I signed the legal papers. She looked over. What papers? Parental acknowledgement, custody, guardianship, everything. My lawyer drew them up. I don't want confusion later if something happens to me, or you. Her throat tightened. That's a big step, I know. But I needed to do it. For him. For us. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a copy. It wasn't a grand gesture. No speeches. Just a simple folder with signed documents. She set it on the coffee table, her hand resting on top of it. Thank you. They sat quietly again, the soft hum of the refrigerator filling the space between their words. Then she asked, Do you ever think about what could have happened if your assistant hadn't blocked me? If you'd called back? All the time, he said. But I can't rewrite that. I can only write this. She nodded slowly. And this? It's not bad. That night, after he left, Nia lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Her mind wasn't spinning like it used to. It was calm. Still, maybe for the first time in years, she wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. Grayson kept showing up. He didn't hover or push. He respected her space, but never let too much time pass without checking in. Sometimes he dropped off Zaire's favorite snack. Sometimes he fixed something around the house. Sometimes he didn't say a word, just sat on the porch swing with Zaire as the sun dipped below the skyline. And Nia noticed something changing inside her. The walls weren't crashing down, but they were softening brick by brick. One Saturday morning, Zaire burst into her room wearing a superhero cape. "We're building a robot army. Dad said you can help name them." She blinked at the word, Dad. It slipped out of Zaire's mouth so naturally now. She smiled and got up. "Let's start with the leader. What's his name?" "Mega Z," he announced, throwing his arms in the air. Grayson looked up from the living room floor, surrounded by wires, batteries, and empty cereal bowls. "You're late to the meeting, General Carter." She laughed. Promotion accepted. As the three of them huddled over circuits and sketches, it didn't feel like a patchwork family. It felt like home, and this time, it felt earned. The week leading up to Zaire's school recital was chaos in every direction. Costumes were missing, one parent forgot cupcakes, and the music teacher had a full breakdown over a misplaced USB drive. But Zaire, he was calm, because this time, both of his parents would be there. He reminded everyone in his class at least twice a day. "My mom runs a whole business," he told his art partner, "and my dad used to run Wolf Innovations, so they both know how to sit still and clap." Grayson was the first to arrive on recital day. He wore a navy pullover, jeans, and a proud smile. Not his usual CEO look, and that was intentional. He saved Nia a seat up front, middle row. When she arrived minutes later, she sat down beside him, smoothing her dress. "This is the first time in years I'm not backstage holding glue and a safety pin." Grayson chuckled. Progress. Zaire stepped onto the stage in a cardboard rocket ship costume, with Captain Z written across the front. The kids sang off-key. The lighting flickered. A few lines were forgotten. But when Zaire looked out and saw them, he beamed. That night, back at home, he danced around the living room, still in costume, humming loudly. Nia and Grayson sat side by side on the couch, sipping tea and watching him like he was the most important thing in the world. When Zaire finally passed out on the rug, cape wrapped around his shoulders. Like a blanket, Grayson gently picked him up and carried him to bed. Nia stood at the doorway as he tucked him in. She whispered, "You're good at this." Grayson looked back. "Took me a while, but I'm trying to get it right." Downstairs, she poured him another cup of tea. "So, what's next?" He raised a brow. "For this," she said simply. He exhaled slowly. "I want to be wherever you are. No press, no board members, no mansion. Just here." She met his gaze. "And what about when life gets messy again? Then we clean it up." Together. She didn't answer right away. She reached into the drawer, pulled out a small notebook, and handed it to him. "What's this?" he asked. "My son's favorite sayings. Every time he says something funny or smart, I write it down." Grayson flipped through. Page after page filled with quotes and dates. "You kept all this?" "From the beginning." His voice caught slightly. "I missed so much. You're here now. That's what matters." He looked up. "I don't want to miss anything else." They stood close, the quiet settling like warm air around them. "I'm not perfect, Nia," he said. "I messed up. A lot. But I meant it when I said I want to build something with you." She smiled. "So start small." "How small?" "Make breakfast." He blinked. "Breakfast?" She nodded. "Tomorrow. You, me, and Captain Z." A grin tugged at his lips. Challenge accepted. The next morning, Zaire woke up to the smell of burnt toast and undercooked eggs. Grayson stood in the kitchen, apron twisted, holding a spatula upside down. Zaire blinked. "What happened in here?" "I'm building memories," Grayson said with a proud shrug. Nia laughed from the doorway. "Let's teach him how to use a timer." They sat down to a breakfast full of laughter, half-edible pancakes, and clumsy syrup pours. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. The week after the recital, things settled into something that looked and felt like a routine. Grayson started showing up 3 mornings a week to walk Zaire to school. On the other 2 days, he brought coffee to Nia before her client meetings. He didn't announce himself or overstay. He simply knocked, smiled, and handed her the cup with a good luck today. Zaire thrived. He began asking Grayson to help with homework, even the math sheets that used to frustrate him. Grayson didn't always get the answers right, but he took his time. That mattered more than getting it perfect. One evening, while Nia was packing inventory boxes for an upcoming wedding event, she heard footsteps behind her. Grayson stood in the doorway, sleeves rolled, tie loosened. "Need help?" She handed him a box. "You read my mind." As they worked, they talked about work, parenting, small things, comfortable things. At one point, he paused. "I forgot how easy this feels with you." She gave a soft smile. "That's what scared me back then. It was too easy, too fast. I was too arrogant to know what I wanted then. But now..." Nia looked at him. "Don't say forever. Say today." Grayson nodded. "Today, I want to be here. With you." After they finished packing, they sat on the front porch. Zaire was at a sleepover. The night was quiet, warm. "Do you ever regret not telling me sooner?" he asked. Nia looked ahead. "No. I regret hoping you'd show up when you already hadn't. That kind of waiting steals joy." He stayed quiet. "But I also believe people can return different than they left." Grayson turned to her. "Am I different? You came back a father. That changes everything." She leaned her head on his shoulder. They sat that way for a while, listening to distant crickets and the occasional car passing by. Later that night, a storm rolled in. Lightning cracked the sky. Zaire called from the neighbor's house. Scared, Nia started to go get him, but Grayson took the keys. "I got it." He brought Zaire home, carried him through the rain, and wrapped him in dry towels. "You're safe," he whispered as he tucked him in. Zaire whispered back, "Thanks, Dad." Grayson froze. Nia stood at the doorway, eyes wide. He turned to her, voice shaky. "Did he... just..." She nodded. He stepped out into the hallway and leaned against the wall, breath heavy. Nia touched his arm. "You earned it." He looked at her. "I'm not sure I deserve it. Then keep showing up until you do." He kissed her forehead, gentle. "Good night, Nia." "Good night, Grayson." That night, neither of them slept much. But it wasn't worry that kept them up. It was hope. The morning sun filtered softly through the sheer curtains, casting a gentle light across. The living room where Nia sat with her laptop open and Zaire curled up beside her. He was sketching superheroes again, adding a cape to a character that looked suspiciously like Grayson. She smiled at the resemblance. It had been nearly 2 months since Grayson had moved to Atlanta, and the rhythm of their new reality had started to settle. Zaire didn't ask questions about what had happened before. He was too busy living in the present, eating cereal with his dad, riding his bike through the cul-de-sac, and asking to stay up 10 more minutes every night. Grayson had kept his promise. He never tried to overstep. He asked. He listened. He showed up. Every single time. Tonight, however, something weighed heavier than usual on Nia's heart. The photo had been shared again, this time by a gossip site with nearly 5 million followers. Rumors were growing louder. A headline from that morning still burned in her mind. Billionaire CEO playing family man or plotting power move. She clicked her phone screen off and exhaled slowly. Grayson knocked lightly before stepping in with a grocery bag in hand. "I got that cereal he likes," he said, holding up the box with a grin. Zaire jumped up. "Yes, the marshmallow one." Grayson ruffled his hair. "Go put it in the pantry, champ." As Zaire dashed off, Nia stood and folded her arms. "We need to talk." Grayson's smile faded. "I figured this was coming. They're starting to drag Zaire's name into the headlines. I didn't sign up for this kind of spotlight. I didn't want that either. But I'm not hiding my son. I'm not asking you to hide him. I'm asking you to protect him." Grayson stepped closer. "That's what I'm trying to do. But I also need you to know, this isn't a phase for me. I'm not checking a box or playing house. I'm in this, Nia. Fully, I know. But the media doesn't care about our intentions. They care about the clicks." He nodded slowly. "I'll handle it. I'll call in my team. They'll make it clear that any coverage of Zaire without consent gets a takedown notice. I want legal boundaries, Grayson, not just words. You'll have them. They stood there in the stillness, the weight of fame pressing through the cracks of their domestic bubble. She didn't doubt his sincerity, just the world's ability to ruin good things too quickly. That evening, they took Zaire out for ice cream. Just the three of them. No drivers, no suits, no talk of press. Nia watched Grayson lean over and let Zaire pick his flavor, even if it meant rainbow sprinkles and sour worms. On the walk home, Grayson reached for Nia's hand. She let him hold it. "I've been thinking," he said, "about the press conference. I want to do another one." She looked over, startled. "Why?" "Because they don't get to define who we are. I do. We do. And I want them to know something." Nia's brows lifted. "What?" "That I'm not just his father. I'm yours too. If you'll let me be—" She stopped walking. Grayson turned to face her. "I want to marry you, Nia. Not because of guilt, not because of image, but because you're my home. You always were." Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't cry. "I don't need another grand gesture, Grayson. This isn't one. This is real, quiet, constant. Like how you've loved Zaire all these years." Zaire, walking ahead, turned around and grinned. "Are you guys kissing again?" They both laughed. Grayson whispered, "Not yet." Nia smiled, squeezed his hand and whispered back, "Let's go home." The days that followed moved like warm spring air, soft, steady and certain. No headlines, no chaos. Just mornings filled with cereal boxes and laughter, evenings with Lego sets, quiet music, and shared glances across the room. Grayson didn't propose again. He didn't need to. Instead, he showed up every single day, taking out the trash without being asked, learning how to braid Zaire, his hair from YouTube tutorials, and making Sunday pancakes from scratch, even if they came out lumpy. Zaire still ate them with pride. One quiet afternoon, while Zaire was at a classmate's birthday party, Nia sat beside Grayson on the porch swing. The light breeze brushed past them, the kind that made you close your eyes and breathe slower. She looked over at him. "You've changed." He turned his head, brows raised. "Good changed or concerning changed?" She chuckled. "You used to be so distant. Everything had to fit your schedule. Now you're picking up juice boxes and checking spelling homework." Grayson leaned back, a small smile playing on his lips. "I think I was waiting to feel needed. Turns out, I needed this more than I knew." Nia nodded. "He's thriving. You can see it. Because of you," Grayson said gently. "You didn't just raise him. You raised peace, strength, a whole new future." Her eyes welled up again. No drama, no performance, just honesty. "I spent a long time doing it alone. I never thought I'd want to share this part of me with anyone. I'm honored you chose me. I didn't just choose you, Grayson. I forgave you." He turned fully toward her, taking her hands in his. "I'll never forget that." They sat in silence, the kind that wraps you in safety. That night, after dinner and dishes, Zaire came into the living room, holding an old notebook. "Mom, I wrote something," he said. Nia and Grayson looked up from the couch. He cleared his throat. "It's for school, but I wanted to read it now." "Go ahead, buddy," Grayson said, sitting up straighter. Zaire stood tall, holding the page with two hands. "It's called My Family." He began, voice soft but confident. "My name is Zaire, and I used to think families were supposed to look one way, but now I know they can look like anything. My mom is my heart. She works hard and hugs me, even when I don't ask. My dad came later, but he came ready. He listens, helps, and tries his best every day. I have two parents who love me, and that makes me lucky." Nia's hands flew to her mouth. Grayson stared at the boy, his eyes blinking fast. Zaire added, "And I think love is about showing up, so that's what my family does. We show up." He walked over and handed the notebook to Nia. "You can keep it." She hugged him tightly, whispering, "You're my everything." Grayson knelt beside them and placed a hand on Zaire's back. "Thank you for letting me be part of your everything." Zaire hugged them both at once. "Can we have ice cream?" They laughed. Later that night, when the house was quiet and Zaire was asleep, Grayson pulled out a velvet box from his coat pocket. He didn't open it. He didn't get on one knee. He just held it out. Nia took it gently, opened it, and saw a ring that wasn't flashy. It was simple, classic, and hers. Grayson said softly, "No pressure. I just want you to know it's here, when you're ready." She looked at him, tears returning. Not from fear, from peace. "Let's build slow," she said. "But let's build." He nodded. No cameras, no spectacle, just two hands, holding on. A few weeks later, Zaire drew a family portrait at school. 3 stick figures, 2 big, 1 small, all smiling. And over it, he wrote in bold crayon, "My family, chosen, loved, forever." If this story moved you, comment "Love shows up." Share it with someone who believes in second chances, quiet love, and the power of choosing each other every day. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true-to-heart stories from Mr. Charles Stories.